Welcome to the podcast, Restore Yourself, Restore Your Marriage, where it's all about discovering the thoughts that get you in the mood, the thoughts that get you out of the mood, and how creating a deeper connection with yourself creates a deeper connection with your spouse. I'm your coach, Shelly Anderson, coaching you through life, love, and intimacy. This is episode number 205, The Sexy Spark of a Subtle Aphrodisiac. Ooh, what could this be? Something subtle that gets us in the mood. You know, I noticed this last week that I found myself to be more in the mood, and it came naturally and easy. And so I thought to myself, I wonder what is different. What has been happening this week where I find myself more in the mood? And I found that once I started thinking about it and putting the pieces together, there was an answer, and it surprised me. And I thought, you know what? It's time to capitalize on this. Let's have a discussion about this, because I think it is so helpful and beneficial when we can look at what worked, especially when we weren't even trying. And so when I found that I was in the mood more often, I was like, what is working? Let's get some more of this happening and taking place. So we're going to discuss this subtle aphrodisiac that showed up and came to play. What I often notice in couples is that we can sometimes underestimate the power of, are you ready? Showing support to our spouse. And this is the thing that was actually taking place last week. And it wasn't like we had planned on showing each other more support than normal. There wasn't anything like bigger or more intense or anything like out of the norm that was happening. But I think both of us just happened to be showing more support last week, and it had an awesome natural effect. So we're going to talk a little bit about this concept of showing support. And again, sometimes if we just hear the word or the idea of like show support to your spouse, we might have some initial negative thoughts, like this is just something that takes more work. I'm going to have to put forth a lot of effort to show support, but it's my duty as a spouse, as a husband or a wife, and I probably should do that. And so sometimes when we have thoughts like that, we might not actually end up supporting our spouse because we're having negative thoughts about it. Or if we still show up and try to show support, we might do it half-heartedly, and our spouse could probably feel that or sense that. But what if we thought about showing support totally different? What if we thought, you know what? Showing support is a sexy thing, and allowed our brain to entertain that thought, that idea, that concept, that being able to show support is actually like opening a door or opening a window that before maybe was closed, right? Women, especially, in order to get in the mood, we need a few doors and windows to be opened. And a lot of times that's work we need to do within ourselves. And a lot of times our spouse could probably do it with just minimal effort, right? Just knowing that that is an option and that that exists is half the battle, right? So let's talk about this. How can we make showing support something that is fun, something that is simple, something that we would actually be interested in doing because it is fun and simple? Now, what does it mean to show support? To show support means that we bear a part of the weight of something. I love that this definition has the word a part, the word part, right? It doesn't mean you need to carry the whole burden Or it doesn't mean you need to solve all the problems. It doesn't mean you need to come up with all the solutions. It just means focus on one part. Pay attention to one part of something that your spouse is explaining, or maybe it's a challenge that they're going through. If you're able to zone in on one part and be able to talk about it or communicate about it, that is showing support. That can go a long way for just focusing in on one part. Showing support means to assist, to help, or to comfort. It means to keep from losing courage. I thought about the movie The Wizard of Oz when I read this definition, and the lion, how he wanted courage. And so his desire was to go to find the Wizard of Oz to be able to get more courage. And it was like the path and the things he faced along the way was the biggest part of the battle. To show support also means to keep something going. And this is the definition that I really enjoyed, because I was like, oh my gosh, last week when I was showing support to my husband, like when he wanted to have some downtime, when he wanted to go hang out with friends and enjoy his hobbies, I was like, yes, do those things. I support you. Those are valuable. Those are healthy. You are doing a ton of work for our family. Yes, I support you. In turn, he was able to support me in the things that I was doing. And so we were able to keep that going. That support happened to be super high last week, and it had amazing results. And I don't even think either of us like planned on doing that. It was just a natural thing, and it had amazing results. So we can choose to keep that going by offering more support. And it also means to promote the interests. So when my husband is interested in something, I can show that I support him by promoting. Yes, pay attention to your interests, spend some time in there, tell me something about it. And he can do the same for me. What I love about this is that we can show support even if we're not interested in that thing. If we have zero interest, there are several things that my husband and I enjoy together, but there are way more things where we're not on the same page, right? Where we don't share the interest, where we could maybe even be total opposites on several things. And it's okay, right? Because we can still show, hey, I value you. I know that you're different than me. We have some things that are the same, and we have several things that are unique and different. And I can still support you, even though it is very different from me. It's awesome. It's very sexy. Now, what is an aphrodisiac? I think probably most of us know what an aphrodisiac is. But if we just look at the definition, it's something that stimulates sexual desire or arousal. And it's also defined as something that causes excitement. Ooh, this is fun, right? Let's cause some excitement to take place between husband and wife. Now, we probably have in our mind some ideas about aphrodisiacs. Like sometimes we think when we hear that word, we're like, oh, oysters, right? Or dark chocolate, right? We have these ideas of what an aphrodisiac is. But if we're able to expand our concept of it and allow new thoughts and new ideas to enter in and say, well, what are the things that are exciting, right? It doesn't have to be exciting about sex. It can just be things that are exciting, because that can also lead, the excitement can lead to being aroused. Arousal is excitement. So when we're able to get excited about other things with our spouse, it allows us to be able to get excited about the sexual things that take place with our spouse. So if we are able to really say, oh my gosh, let's just look at the things that help me get excited and help my spouse get excited, and put more of those fun and exciting things into the mix, into our lives, then that could really foster some awesome sense of aphrodisiacs and flirtatiousness and getting in the mood, but also still showing support, right? If I know that certain things really get my husband excited, like with some of his hobbies, and I'm like, hey, let's consider that this weekend, or let's talk about it, or let's watch a show on it. He is realizing that I acknowledge it, I know it, and I'm showing support, but it's creating that excitement. And I get excited, even if it's things I'm not interested in, because I feel good knowing I'm fostering that level of support and that he'll be able to be excited and I can witness and enjoy and participate in his excitement as well. So that's also exciting for me. So, how do we do this? We're going to talk about 5 easy tips, 5 easy ways to show support. And these are things that don't take a lot of effort. So, hopefully, we can incorporate them into our lives, into our week, into our days, and have a lot of return for little effort. So, let's dive in. The first one is listen to understand just one part of what your spouse is saying, right? Sometimes, if our spouse, let's say they're going through something difficult or challenging at work, they may come and just vent, right? And let it all out. And if we're the listener, it may be challenging for us to like really remember all the details or the order of the things that are happening or really get the all the big things. But what if we were really able to say, you know what? Just focus on understanding one part of it. Focus in on one. Our brain can really do that instead of being overwhelmed by trying to remember all of it and all the details. So if we listen to just understand one thing really well, one thing with clarity, then we can ask more questions about that one thing. And what does that do for our spouse? They feel heard, they feel listened to, they feel like you're trying to understand them as a person, that you're really trying to get the concept of what they're explaining. And your spouse will be able to appreciate that little effort, right? That appreciation goes up. And there is something that takes place on a very deep, tangible level when we feel that our spouse is understanding us. We value that. The trust level goes up. And we can feel that. That's exciting. That's an exciting thing. And it's also a very sexy thing to know that your spouse is really there for you. They're showing up, they're listening. So, how do we make that fun? How can we make listening to understand one concept more fun? An idea is like you can look for a piece of flooring, right? A little piece of carpet or something that represents the floor, maybe a piece of wood. Maybe you have some leftovers in your garage of when you guys did your flooring. Or maybe you find a sample at one of the stores when you're out of a little piece of carpet or flooring. And when you realize when your spouse maybe comes home from work that there was a lot going on, and you can hand them this piece of flooring and you can say, you know what? You've got the floor. Tell me all about it. Tell me all the things right now. I want to hear it. This little fun gesture can represent and symbolize so many things, so much support, and that you're there, you're listening, you're involved, you're a part of it. You could say, I'm all ears, right? Halloween stores are on the verge of opening. Go find some funny ears, right? Elf ears. You can put them on when you are in the mood to be a good listener and show support and just say, I'm all ears. And it's a funny thing, but it can lower some of that stress and be like, oh, look what my spouse is doing. That is awesome. I appreciate that. Okay, number 2, be your spouse's biggest fan. Yes, this is a fun one, and we can totally play with this one in so many ways. Think about some of those, like the dollar store or party supply stores. Often they have like fun themes down the aisles, or they have all kinds of supplies on in different colors. And you can just go find out, or like once you know your spouse's favorite color, go to that section and buy some things in that color. And you are the biggest fan of your spouse. You're going to wear those fun colors, right? And when your spouse wants to discuss or talk about something challenging, you are the biggest fan. You can put that fun stuff on and be like, yes, I got you. Tell me all about it. I'm here for you. I am going to cheer you on. I am your cheering section. This is so important, and it can be such a fun thing to do, but the message is magical, right? I hear you, I see you, I support you. My husband did something not with like fan items, but he said something to me last week that I remember the minute he said that, I was like, ooh, that is sexy. And it was just something when we had been talking about work and we knew that we both had to go to work and, that we were going to be busy. And right before we left to go to work, he said something to me where he was like, "Oh, I have to go to work, but I don't want to leave you." And I was like, "Oh, he likes me. He is my biggest fan." Right? We weren't even doing anything sexy, right? We were talking about work and going to work and all the things that we had to do. And yet that one word conveyed like, "Hey, I like you. I like spending time with you. I like being with you. I'm your fan. I'm your biggest fan." That sentence rang in my mind throughout the entire day. And I was like, we like each other. Sometimes in the busyness of life, we can forget that. And sometimes a simple sentence like, "Hey, I don't want to be without you. I want to be with you." That is sexy. I remember being like, "Oh, you're hot. I'm attracted to you. And I'm sad that we have to go to work right now, but let's circle back around to that later on." And we did, right? That sentiment was there throughout the entire day. When we are our spouse's biggest fan, we can show appreciation for the little things that they are doing and just say, like, "I love that. I love when you do that. I really appreciate that. I value when you do that. It means so much." We can also show support, like, "You've got this." We can put on our fan gear and be like, "You got this. We're here to support you. What do you need? You can do it." I love that. And even at the dollar store, you can buy like a pack of like plastic gold medals with like ribbon that you can hang, right? If your spouse does something, like you can really show that you value that you're their biggest fan and be like, "That deserves a medal. Let's put one on you. I know you didn't want to rake leaves today, but you did it. Yes, let's celebrate." When we are when we take on the role ourselves of becoming our spouse's biggest fan, we show up to everyday life a little bit differently. And that's fun. We're looking for the good. We're looking for the positive. We're looking for ways to really celebrate that we are their biggest fan. That's a fun place to be. Okay, number 3, create a safe space in your heart for your spouse. I like to think about it as creating a safe workspace in your heart for your spouse. So sometimes I like to think visually, and I like to think that inside my heart is a whiteboard, and that my husband has that whiteboard, and it is a protected whiteboard. That when my husband has things to talk about or things to work through, or even if he's mad at me about things, that he has that whiteboard on my heart and that he can write down and express all of his thoughts, all of his feelings, all of his frustrations, all of it. And he can put it on that whiteboard and it will remain safe there. I am not going to be mean about those thoughts. I'm not going to be judgmental about those feelings. And I'm going to leave that as a safe space and say, like, that is there for you. That safe space is there for you in my heart. And it's your workspace. Like, let's work through it. without all the crap that often comes when our spouse is going through something difficult or wants to discuss something challenging. That's something we can do for ourselves so we remain in a good place, but it's also such a gift to be able to say, I support you. We're all going to face hard things, but if we have this skill of creating that little safe space, that whiteboard, it's protected. Man, that is an awesome, awesome way to show that you support your spouse. And we can also make that fun too, right? We can maybe even cut out a heart out of paper, red construction paper, whatever, and maybe just tape it on us. Say, my heart is open. Like, feel free to talk. I am not going to judge you. I'm here for you. I'm ready to listen. Let's work through these things, right? It's like the lion from The Wizard of Oz. Physically put a heart on your body. Say, you've got a safe space in my heart. Let's get to it. Man, what an awesome way to be able to give your spouse that little drop of courage. Maybe when something is challenging, it is very, very awesome. Okay, the fourth thing, we can do a thoughtful gesture, right? Something we know could really make a difference, something little, unexpected, a surprise for our spouse. I love this one because we can do something super small and it can have a big impact, right? If our husband is very into water skiing, wakeboarding, right? Maybe there's something we could do that is just like, hey, did you see this video? I thought of you when I saw this. Like, let's watch it. It's really cool. It's only 3 minutes, right? That's something so small, but it is just that really thoughtful gesture of, hey, I'm thinking about you. Now, think about if they're having a hard day, and we know that they are. We know that there's a lot of stress or some challenges they're facing. So many simple things we could do, right? We could get a bath ready for them, turn the lights down. We can put on some soft, relaxing music. We can give them a massage, right? We can just connect with them. We're able to send a quick text in the middle of their workday and say, you know what? I'm thinking about you. I'm praying about you, right? Just those small things can show support and can really, really go a long way. So, in order to make it fun, I would love for you to really consider the hormone oxytocin. This is the love hormone, the bonding hormone, and it can come through physical touch. Now, I'm not talking about just sexual touch, right? I'm not talking about going after the obvious erogenous zones. What about the not so obvious parts of our skin, right? What if we were to touch our spouse's elbow, right? That's probably a part of our body that is doesn't get a lot of attention. But what if we just reached out to our spouse and just held onto that elbow and just touched it, and just had that contact, that touch, that connection? It's going to ignite that oxytocin to be released. And because it's a part of our body that gets neglected, it's going to activate the nerves, like the skin, like, ooh, I kind of like how that feels on the elbow. I don't get that very much, right? And then it kind of just helps us have a new sensation flow through our body. So, husbands, I would love for you to really consider touching your wife in the non-sexual areas so that it can enliven and activate her skin, different parts of her skin. That is very sexy to a woman when a husband does that and pays attention to all the parts of her skin, not just the very common and very obvious erogenous parts of the skin. And for the wives, I would love for you to actually go out of your normal comfort zone. And instead of just touching your husband only on the non-erogenous parts, but to go after it, have that physical touch in the places you know he would love it, right? And make it fun, make it playful, make it a game. I love to play this game with my husband out in public. Like, let's see if I can grab him in some fun spots where when nobody's looking, right? It has to be fast, it has to be quick, it has to be subtle. I love doing that. It's amazing. So even that touch without all the expectations can be a very sexy thing. Okay, and the last tip, number 5, make sure you spend a little bit of alone time together, right? Get the distractions turned off. Get all the noise and the busyness out of the way for a while. Get nostalgic. Reflect, relive, or recreate some of your dating experiences, right? When all the fun emotions were just bubbling, right? Being flirtatious with each other, where women get to tune into that sexy side of themselves and husbands also get to do that. And you have that fun interaction. As you are able to have that time together, that flirtatiousness, it brings those feelings, the same feelings of when you were dating and falling in love, it brings them to the present. You can feel them all over again. Our mind has the ability to do this as we think about that time in our lives and the relationship. But as we create dates, create alone time together, we are sending messages and communicating, hey, you are important to me. I value our relationship. I value you as a person. I value us together. And I'm willing to put aside some time for that specific thing for us. That is a very sexy thing. You can also make this fun, right? It doesn't have to always be the same things that you're used to doing. And you can make it fun by saying, hey, let's cook something, whether it's something new or something you've cooked together for 20 years. Just cook it with only an apron on, both of you. Get some aprons on, get some gloves on, some mittens so you don't burn yourselves. And that's funny. That is a funny thing. And that fun time together, that funniness can really create that sexiness in between the both of you as you're laughing together and just standing there in aprons only. That's something I want to do for sure. It's on my list. So this next week, see if you can put some of this good, fun, easy support into the mix, into your lives, into the relationship, and see what it does. See how it ignites that spark of desire within you and your spouse. I hope it's something that you will appreciate and enjoy. Because remember, the more you restore this type of intimacy with yourself, the more you restore it with your spouse. Thank you so much for listening today, and I hope you will join me again next time.